बिस्मिल्लाहिर्रहमानिर्रहीम अस्सलामु अलैकुम वरहमतुल्लाहि वबरकातुह। इंग्लिश लेक्चरर टेस्ट KPPSC वाला हमने शुरू किया था। हमने 19 तक MCQs सॉल्व की थी पार्ट 1 में। इस वीडियो में हम बाकी MCQs भी हल करेंगे, लेकिन उससे पहले पार्ट 1 में एक करेक्शन करनी है। एक MCQ गलत था तो वो आप करेक्ट कर लीजिए। MCQ नंबर 2 में हमने ऑप्शन बताया फोर्ट्रेस, लेकिन यहाँ पर करेक्ट ऑप्शन है कैनन। In an attempt to defeat God and his angel, what does the rebel angels makes in paradise lost? तो यहाँ पर करेक्ट ऑप्शन है D and कैनन। हमने फोर्ट्रेस बताया। In paradise lost, the rebel angels make cannons to bombard the good angels in an attempt to defeat God and his angels. The good angels are at a disadvantage because their armor makes it hard for them to escape. Michael devises a plan to have the good angels move mountains across the battlefield to bury the rebel angels and their cannons. The rebel angels must dig themselves out from under the mountains and reassemble. तो यहाँ पर एक करेक्शन कर लीजिए। क्वेश्चन 20 है, a word made with initial letter or letters of a phrase and pronounced as word is known as an acronym. An acronym is a word formed from the initial letters of a phrase or group of words and is pronounced as a single word. For example, NASA, National Aeronautics and Space Administration, or laser, light amplification by simulated emission of radiation, are acronyms. Question 21. Which duel advocates a renewal of all-out war against God and Paradise Lost? तो यहाँ पर मलक। करेक्ट ऑप्शन है मलक। In Paradise Lost, Moloch is the devil who advocates for an all-out war against God after their fall from heaven. He argues that they should continue their rebellion with full force, even if it leads to their destruction. Moloch represents the more violent and reckless aspect of the fallen angels. Question 22. Pitch movements and spoken utterances that are not related to difference in word meaning is called what? Is called intonation. Intonation is what? Intonation refers to the variation in pitch while speaking, which is not related to changes in word meaning, but serves to convey emotions, emphasis, or the structure of the sentence, such as indicating question or statement. It is the rise and fall of the voice in speech. 23. A term used in linguistics to refer a continuous stretch of language larger than a sentence built within the broad notion in which several different applications may be found is called discourse. In linguistics, discourse refers to a continuous stretch of language that is larger than a sentence. It includes spoken or written communication that involves multiple sentences, and it is studied in terms of how meaning is constructed, how coherence is achieved, and how language functions in a social context. तो यहाँ पर करेक्ट ऑप्शन है discourse. 24. In the rape of the lock, to what do the four types of supernatural beings correspond? तो यहाँ पर रेप ऑफ द लॉक में अर्थ, एयर, फायर एंड वाटर. In the rape of the lock, the four types of supernatural beings, the selves, goblins, nymphs, and salamanders, correspond to the classical elements of earth, air, fire, and water. These elemental associations reflect the roles these beings play in the mock epic, where they are tasked with protecting or influencing the human characters involved in the satire of high society. Question 25 are inflectional categories that usually pertain to verbs, both have to do with time. यहाँ पर tense and aspect are inflectional categories that usually pertain to verbs, both have to do with time. Tense and aspect are inflectional categories that typically pertain to verbs and both relate to time. Tense. Tense refers to the time when an action occurs, past, present, future. Aspect refers to the nature or state of an action or event in time, such as wit, perfective, ongoing, progressive, or habitual aspect. These categories help convey temporal information about actions or states described by verbs. 26. At what time do sleepless lovers awake in the poem The Rape of the Lock? Noon. In The Rape of the Lock, the sleepless lovers awake at noon. This is mentioned in Canto 1, where it is humorously noted that the lovers are so engrossed in their trivial concerns and vanity that they wake late in the day. Unlike the more virtuous or hard-working characters, this playful detail adds to the mock epic tune of the poem, satirizing the idle and self-indulgent nature of the aristocracy. 27. Speakers may float the maxim by exaggerating as in hyperbole. Speakers may float the maxim by exaggerating. In hyperbole, speakers may float the maxim of Grace's conversational implication by exaggerating for emphasis or effect, rather than adhering strictly to the expected level of truthfulness. Hyperbole is a form of overstatement that deliberately distorts the reality to create a dramatic, humorous, or emotional effect, such as saying, I've told you a million times, when, of course, it's not literally true. 28 is an attempt to summarize the range of attitudes and methods found in the grammatical study, often related to relevance to many periods. इसको descriptive grammar कहते हैं. Descriptive grammar refers to an approach that aims to describe how language is actually used by speakers in various contexts, rather than prescribing how it should be used. It summarizes the range of grammatical structures and methods found in a language without making judgments about correctness, and it often takes into account changes and variations across time and context. 29. Over the course of the novel Wuthering Heights, which characters claim to see Catherine's ghost? Lockwood and Heathcliff. Over the course of the novel Wuthering Heights, which characters claim to see Catherine's ghost? ये Lockwood and Heathcliff था. In Wuthering Heights, both Lockwood and Heathcliff claim to have seen the ghost of Catherine Arnshaw. Lockwood, the novel's narrator, sees what he believes to be Catherine's ghost in a dream-like encounter at Wuthering Heights. Heathcliff is deeply connected to Catherine, and he experiences what seems to be a spiritual visitation from her ghost, particularly toward the end of the novel. 30. What impulsive action does Maggie take during the visit of her aunts and uncles in the mill on the Floss? She cuts her hair. In the mill on the floors, Maggie Tulliver takes the impulsive action of cutting her hair during the visit of her aunts and uncles. This act symbolizes her emotional turmoil and desire for independence. Maggie is feeling trapped by the constraints of her family's expectations and society's rules, and cutting her hair represents a rebellious, though ultimately futile, attempt to break free from those pressures. 31. Type of antonym expresses meaning that is relative to the speaker. A degree continuum, the attribute referred to by the antonym exists on hypothetical scale. इसको gradable कहते हैं. Gradable. Gradable antonyms express meanings that exist on a continuum or scale, where the attribute referred to can exist in varying degrees. For example, hot and cold are gradable antonyms. If something can be somewhat hot or cold, and the extremes exist on a scale. The meaning of these antonyms is relative to the speaker and context, with an intermediate range possible between the extremes. 32. In the poem The Rape of the Lock, who is Shock? Belinda's lapdog. Who is Shock? Belinda's lapdog. In The Rape of the Lock, Shock is Belinda's beloved lapdog. The dog is mentioned in the poem as part of the humorous and satirical portrayal of Belinda's extravagant and self-indulgent life. Shock is depicted as being part of the mock epic's larger theme of trivial concerns, contributing to the exaggerated and playful tone of the poem. 33. In the novel Return of the Native, what was Climb's occupation in Paris? वो क्या था? डायमंड मर्चेंट था. Climb's diamond merchant. In the Return of the Native, Climb's Ubright works as a diamond merchant in Paris for a time. However, his career change is not as straightforward. He initially works in Paris in the diamond trade, but later he becomes a school teacher after returning to Edgar Health. His decision to leave the diamond merchant profession for a more meaningful, selfless occupation as a teacher plays a significant role in the development of his character. 34. A theory which aims to integrate phonetics and phonology into a single model by providing a feature analysis related to the muscular activity underlying movement. तो इसको articulatory analog कहते हैं. The articulatory analog theory aims to integrate phonetics and phonology into a single model. It does this by providing a feature analysis that connects the muscular activity involved in speech production to the abstract phonological feature that underlie sounds. The idea is to show how physical movements like the position and the movement of the tongue or lips correspond to phonological representations such as voicing, place of articulation, etc. 35. An environment is a verbal response that is used to describe a comment on things or events in the text. In behavioral psychology and applied behavior analysis, a text is a type of verbal response where the speaker comments on things or events in the environment. It is typically a labeling or identification response triggered by a sensory experience such as seeing, hearing, or feeling something. For example, if someone sees a dog and says, "Dog, that is a text." 36. The new critics were formalist criticism. The new critics were formalist criticism. The new critics were proponents of formalist criticism, which emphasizes analyzing the form and structure of a literary work itself, its language, symbolism, and literary devices, without considering external factors such as the author's biography, historical context, or the reader's personal feelings. They focused on the text as an independent, self-contained object and believed that the meaning of the work could be found within its own structure. 37 है, which of the following is not a character in Paradise Lost? To death, sin और chaos है agony. Is not a character in Paradise Lost. In Paradise Lost, death, sin and chaos are all characters, but agony is not. Sin is the personification of the concept of sin and is depicted as Satan's daughter in the epic. Death is another personification, the son of Satan and sin, who represent the inevitable consequence of sin. Chaos is portrayed as a primordial being, a state that exists before the creation of the universe, representing disorder. Agony, however, is not a character in Paradise Lost. It is more of an abstract concept, but it is not given personified form in the way that sin, death, and chaos are. Involves learning letter. 38 है, involves learning letter sound, correspondence and learning how knowledge to reading, जिसको phonics कहते हैं. Phonics involves learning the letter sound, correspondences and understanding how these correspondences are applied to reading. It is a method of teaching reading that emphasizes the relationship between sounds, phonemes and their corresponding letters or letter combinations, graphemes. Phonics helps learners decode words by sounding them out, making it a fundamental skill in early reading development. 39. A term which characterizes linguistic features, mediating norms of social behavior and the notions as rapport, defense, and distance is called politeness. Politeness refers to the linguistic strategies and features used to manage social relationships and show respect, often mediating norms of social behavior related to rapport, defense, and distance. These strategies are used to navigate balance between being respectful and maintaining social harmony while avoiding conflict or offense in communication. Politeness theory, developed by sociolinguists Penelope Brown and Stephen Levinson, identifies strategies like positive politeness, showing solidarity, and negative politeness, respecting others' autonomy. 40. When we drive words, we attach affixes to bases. In other words, the base comes derived by affixation. इसको बैक फॉर्मिंग कहते हैं. Back forming refers to the process in which a word is created by removing an affix from an existing word, often mistakenly or by analogy. For example, the verb to edit is derived from the noun editor, which seems to imply that editor is the base word and edit is the derived form, even though this is not the original order of word formation. 41. What is Milton's stated purpose in Paradise Lost? To justify the ways of God to men. 42 had two words which differ in meaning when only one sound is E. इसको minimal pair कहते हैं. Two words which differ in meaning when only one sound is. 43. To what are Belinda's eyes repeatedly compared in the poem The Sun? 44. In Heart of Darkness, in what setting does the novel open? A boat on the Thames River. 45. Morphophonemic rules will adjust the shapes of so distinct from their environment. इसको डिससिमिलेशन कहते हैं. तो यहाँ पर ये MCQs ख़त्म हो जाती है. दुआ में याद रखना. अल्लाह हाफिज़. अस्सलामु अलैकुम वरहमतुल्लाहि वबरकातुहू.